What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So with that most recent Nintendo Direct now in the books, we're starting to get some numbers circulating here around how exactly it did online, and the number that's being thrown around right now seems to be very shocking to a lot of people online. Well, it certainly shows the strength of the Nintendo brand at the very least, and we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Sony and their own event that seems to be happening here pretty soon. In fact, we now have a bit of an indication as to exactly when that state of play could be happening, so we'll look at that. And we'll also be talking about a certain Assassin's Creed remake that's been rumored for a little while now. Well, we are getting some more details for it, and it seems like it is setting up to be a very fun reveal here pretty soon. All that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or link in the description down below. And we're going to start today with an update from Sony for the DualSense controller. We already heard this was going to be happening at some point in the future, and it looks like, well, it's now. See, the update is rolling out today, and it will allow you to take your DualSense controller and sync it up to multiple different devices through way of different profiles that you would use with the different face buttons. Now, this is all detailed over on PlayStation blog, and the way this works, they also showed it off in a video over on their X account. You press and hold down one of the face buttons, say triangle, and then you press and hold down the PlayStation logo. You'll see it blink multiple times to indicate which profile it's on, and then you can sync it up to a PlayStation 5, a PS5 Pro, a cell phone, and then a PC all at once, and you can switch between them. So it just makes it much, much more convenient as opposed to having to sync up every single time going through it with just one profile. So pretty cool to see that with a single DualSense controller jumping around between multiple devices on the fly. Also, with Tokyo Game Show happening next week, there's another event that's flown a little bit under the radar. We can see this posted. This is over on Kojima Productions' website. This is their Beyond the Strand event. It's the 10th anniversary celebration for Kojima Productions. It seems like it's going to be a 2.5-hour thing. All right, anyway, the idea here, they say, is to celebrate 10 years of Kojima Productions, hosted by, you guessed it, Hideo Kojima. And the celebratory event will include special guest appearances, as well as offer a glimpse into future projects. So that's going to be the thing that a lot of people are curious about. Will Kojima talk about Fizzant? Will he talk about OD? Because that's kind of been missing for a while. And while I figure you would have Microsoft want to talk about it since it's the game in collaboration with them, maybe they're like, hey, go ahead, Kojima. I mean, Death Stranding 2 is already out there. Go ahead and talk about OD so we can get the ball rolling on the marketing there. Just give us an idea as to exactly what that game is. Fizzant? I'd be shocked because apparently Kojima's the only one who's been working on it, but maybe he wants to talk about concepts around the game or even some quick art and sketches that have been done to kind of set up the tone or at least the direction of that title. There's a lot of possibilities here, and I mean, it's possible none of it has to do with games, other than maybe talking with some of the voices or actors or something from Death Stranding 2. There's a chance he just wants to talk about movies or other forms of media. Oh, and Sonic Racing Cross Worlds is coming up here pretty soon, and there was a certain trailer, or even commercial, you could say, that was released. This we can see over on the Sonic the Hedgehog X account, and it's called Come Race on Our Level. And it pokes fun completely and calls out Mario Kart World. They do a fun little blur effect on the TV, and you know about that kart racer. And they keep referencing it. And okay, I don't like this. No. I love it. To see this is so this is such a 90s feeling of SEGA just attacking Nintendo, and in a way it's kind of like a funny, like, oh, this is sassy Sonic basically back at it again. But I do like that. I mean, look, Mario Kart is the kart racing game. We know how many copies Mario Kart 8 Deluxe sold, and Mario Kart World is rolling along as well, so why not? If you're Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, you may as well take a shot at Mario Kart World. If nothing else, it made for a really fun commercial that had a lot of nostalgia vibes just because they were beating up on Nintendo, really. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with that Nintendo Direct that aired on Friday. It ran for about an hour, and it gave us a look at a bunch of stuff that's coming up over the course of the next few months going into 2026. And while there were mixed reactions coming out of that event, I thought for the most part it was good. It wasn't incredible like, oh wow, big 3D Zelda, big 3D Mario, brand new stuff with those games and franchises, but I think there was enough, especially with that Metroid Prime 4 release date just making it in before the end of the year, that I'm pretty excited to check out some of these games as they release throughout the rest of 2025 and then into 2026. But now we have some numbers as to just how much intrigue and how much interest there was with that recent live stream. So this we can see is a card that was released, and this is from Stream Charts, and as you guessed it, they do track streams and stuff that happen across multiple different platforms. They have like Twitch and YouTube and Kick and TikTok and some other ones there where they track, I guess, how many people are restreaming the event, and then, of course, how many people are watching Nintendo's own stream of that Direct. And they compare it to a bunch of other gaming or tech showcases of 2025, and you can see how much larger Nintendo's bar is than everyone else's, including their own. I mean, look, Summer Game Fest is less than half of what this Nintendo Direct did most recently. 6.3 million peak viewers. That is a lot. Okay, so, I mean, if you look at their March 27th Direct, 2.72 million, their September 12th Direct, 2.92 million, and right between that, the Apple event that happened that same week. I mean, it was a couple of days right there before that Nintendo Direct Switch 2 showcase on Friday that had 2.8 million for the Apple event. That, at first I looked at it, I said, wow, really? I thought there would have been a lot more for the Apple event, but then I thought about it a bit, and you know what? I mean, most people look up what the latest iPhone is, I feel like anyway, in the mainstream, when it's time for them to upgrade. I know there's the discussion around people going out and buying the $1,000 or $1,200 iPhone when it releases day one, and people do that. You see people lining up outside the stores, or at least they used to. Now it's probably just online queues and trying to beat the bots to get to the phone. But I think the vast majority of people are just waiting for the upgrade. When it happens, then they look into what's the newest iPhone or what's the newest Galaxy phone or device or that kind of thing, right? So I think you do have a lot of enthusiasts tuning in, but certainly not as many as Nintendo enthusiasts. Again, the Nintendo event was also restreamed by many people, and it seems like that would be more entertaining just because of the different games there, as opposed to Apple showing you how many lenses are on the back of the newest iPhone, or the Air being the thinnest iPhone. I've never really thought about a phone getting thinner. I've thought about how large it's getting to be almost a tablet, but does it have to get thinner? Anyway, I guess interesting technology-wise. But the thing that I was a little surprised about, I really had to look at this a bit. They're missing an event from this chart, and that's the Switch 2 Direct, where they went over everything with that. Remember, that was the first time we heard about pricing around these devices, all the features of the system. I said, no, there's no way. That probably had more people, right, than this most recent Direct. Well, I went and looked. Nintendo pulled that stream down and re-uploaded it as a video on demand on their video side, most likely, so it could be up there, I guess, in 4K. So that would then pull it away from any kind of analytics they'd be able to accrue here and put on this chart. So I guess we don't really know in that case to compare it here, but one thing's for sure, as we're seeing with this most recent Direct, Nintendo is very strong right now when it comes to these different events that they hold. I mean, they have it figured out to a T, and I know there's always opinions coming out of these events, but every time people tune into it. And now I'm curious, because we're going to talk about it here in a second, but an event coming up from Sony, how would that compare? Because I assume Stream Charts here would also chart that one, and maybe we'll have a direct comparison then of two different events going into Tokyo Game Show, one from Sony and one from Nintendo, and see how peak viewership there would compare. But for now, Nintendo's on top of the world with these Directs. They just say, hey, we're going live in a couple of days, and then everyone tunes in to watch a bunch of commercials for products that Nintendo will inevitably sell to people. It's that doesn't get much easier than that. Next up, let's talk about Sony in a state of play that is basically imminent at this point. Now, we were figuring it would happen before Tokyo Game Show, as Sony usually does that every year, most years. You see something in September ahead of that specific event, as different partners with Sony would want to show off their game heading into the big trade show that would happen there in Japan. Well, now it seems that we at least have an indication as to when this is happening. This we can see. This is over on PlayStation Universe, where they are noting that Nate the Hate, had replied to someone when asking about this State of Play showcase, and he just simply said next week. Now, people are trying to figure out, is it a State of Play? Is it like a big showcase? I think it's just a State of Play. I think it's pretty straightforward as something that will align with Tokyo Game Show, so you would see third parties there alongside of a couple of first-party announcements. I think, like, for example, like, Saros makes the most sense to at least have some sort of showing. My thing is, they wanted to show gameplay, but I feel like that would be done separately in a trailer drop so they can have 5 or 6 minutes or so to show it off, as opposed to taking up a large chunk of a State of Play. That will probably be, again, a bunch of trailers wrapped together, and each one gets 1 or 2 minutes. It would be kind of strange for a game that I think is coming out later in 2026, although who knows, Housemarque could surprise us. I think it's coming out later next year, for them to take up a large chunk of the State of Play, as opposed to maybe something coming up a little sooner. Now, what could that be? It is kind of hard to say, as Sony has relied heavily on third parties for quite some time, but certainly this generation, as they themselves show us with their revenue breakdown, where microtransactions off of third-party live service games are, well, they're certainly doing well and making up the majority at this point of the revenue that they bring in. But first-party wise, we're expecting at this time something from Insomniac, with Wolverine that's been out there for a bit, and it sounds like that is ready to be shown again and get a 2026 release date. And then I'm also curious if they decide to show Venom as well, as now that's being discussed potentially as something that would align with the PlayStation 6 in 2027, similar to what was done with Miles Morales, where it was kind of a smaller release, but that being paired with Spider-Man Remastered, maybe we see something similar to Spider-Man 2, and then you also have Venom that's paired together there. I also would like to see Square Enix show up here with Final Fantasy IX Remake. That's been discussed at length now, and it sounds like it's still a thing. So this would be a really cool spot going into Tokyo Game Show to show it off. And I guess that there's that God of War 2.5D Metroidvania style game. I think it'd be kind of fun just to see what that looks like here in this State of Play, as sort of, it would normally be a big surprise, but of course it's gotten out there already. But that'd be fun to at least see that show up so we can have just something there from Sony Santa Monica, as apparently they're working on a whole other game as well. But we'll see what they have for us next week. Look for that State of Play. I am expecting, so Tokyo Game Show starts on Thursday. They're not going to have the event on Thursday, like the State of Play. I figure Tuesday, Wednesday is even cutting it close. So I'm thinking Tuesday, and then maybe they announce it this week. Could even be today, that they at least make the formal announcement on PlayStation Blog, and we get set up for this event to kick off next week heading into Tokyo Game Show. Next up, let's talk about that rumored Assassin's Creed Black Flag remake, as it's been making the rounds here and there with different bits of information getting out, like for example from Insider Gaming, just letting us know that it's a thing along with its code name, and that they were originally targeting like the end of 2025, but most likely now, as we're seeing, sometime in 2026. And there's even been discussions about it being early, maybe first half of 2026, and an announcement for this could be happening here pretty soon. But now we're getting more details. This coming from Jook's video, and I have a link to their video down below in the sources. And then we also have some translations we can go over. This, for example, we can see. This is from the Hidden One over on X, who says the things like the remake removes the modern day and replaces them with more content in Edward's pirate era. So a few extra hours they mentioned compared to the original, and the modern day stuff, I know there's a lot of lore behind that and like the story elements. I always felt like outside of that, it just slowed the action down. I always wanted to get back to the Assassin's Creed gameplay itself. So that's interesting to remove that, but add in more content to it. I'm not going to argue with that one. Gameplay, though, shifting closer to the RPG style of the newer Assassin's Creed games, so loot and gear stats for Edward, inventory systems, and combat leaning toward the RPG style rather than the choreographed combat of the original. I think at times we remember these games with nostalgia goggles, and I will say the combat in Black Flag, I don't know how well it's aged compared to what they've been able to do with the more recent Assassin's Creed games. I don't mind any of this. I don't think it's going to lean as heavily into the RPG elements we have now in even Assassin's Creed Shadows. So I think if they do some of the light RPG stuff as being mentioned here, I don't necessarily think that's an issue. I think it could actually make the game just better overall. And no loading screens would move between ship and land, the map not larger, but the islands being filled with more activities and side content, as well as cut content from the original. being included, and they mention it using Ubisoft's new Anvil pipeline engine, which is the same as Assassin's Creed Shadows. Assassin's Creed Shadows is a very, very good-looking game, has taken full advantage of the PlayStation 5 Pro, and they're mentioning that early 2026, potentially March release for it. This is all, to me, good stuff. Like, a lot of people do look back on certain Assassin's Creed games as their favorites. Assassin's Creed 2 and Assassin's Creed Black Flag are the games that I hear come up all the time. So having a remake for Black Flag, it seems like an easy win for Ubisoft. I say seems like for Ubisoft because who knows what kind of curveball they could put in there to mess it up. But Shadows was a fun game. It was a good game. I think this could be really, really cool for Black Flag, especially taking advantage of these newer consoles and then also newer hardware for PC versus what Black Flag had to work with. I mean, it's crazy to say it, but more than 10 years ago now. So, hey, I'm excited to see more about this game. Hopefully it gets announced before the end of this year. Maybe it's something that gets announced at the Keighley event, the Game of the Year show in December. Even that feels like it's cutting it kind of close. Who knows? Maybe Ubisoft just one day shows up online and is like, hey, we're remaking Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Here's a bunch of information. Here's a trailer. Get ready for 2026. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about some new Game Pass games going into the service to close out September and start up October. Let's head over here. This is over on news.xbox.com. I do want to note that the Black Ops 7 beta, that's going to run October 2nd to the 8th. They have early access for pre-orders and Game Pass subscribers. So if you're just subscribed to Game Pass, guess what? You can try out Black Ops 7 when that beta launches at the beginning of October. Now, available currently, Roadcraft, that's just gone into the service there. That's Ultimate and Standard, and this is where, again, things get kind of confusing a bit. They have these different tiers. So, one example, Modern Warfare 3, that is now in Game Pass Standard, along with For the King 2. Overthrown, that's through a game preview on Game Pass Standard. Deep Rock Galactic Survivor, that's going into Game Pass Ultimate on September 17th. Moving up to September 18th, we have Frostpunk 2, that's Game Pass Ultimate. Wobbly Life, that's Ultimate, Standard, and PC. Then moving up to September 19th, we have Hades, that's Ultimate, PC, and Standard. Moving up to September 22nd, Endless Legend 2, that's a game preview, Game Pass Ultimate and PC Game Pass. On September 23rd, we have Sworn, that's Game Pass Ultimate and PC Game Pass. September 25th, we have Peppa Pig World Adventures, that's Ultimate and then PC and Standard. We have Visions of Mana, that's a good get though for Standard members there, as well as Ultimate and then PC. Then on September 30th, we have Lara Croft and the Guardian of Light, Standard, PC, and Ultimate. October 7th, we have Sopa, the Tale of the Stolen Potato. That's Ultimate and PC Game Pass. So it's pretty good overall. Again, the early access thing for Call of Duty Black Ops 7, I'm sure is exciting for Call of Duty fans out there. But for the most part, not a bad way to close out. I think Visions of Mana for me it's a cool one to see thrown in there, even though the studio's like shut down. If you've been kind of on the fence about it, just going to Game Pass gives you a chance to at least try it out and see what you think about it there. Otherwise, though, we'll keep an eye out for Tokyo Game Show. Remember, Microsoft is having an event there, a full live stream, and they are known to have some Game Pass surprises that can even drop in right away. So we'll see if they have anything for us there as a surprise to close out September or start up October. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, which generation of consoles would you say have the best controllers? Wow, 9th generation. So PS5, Xbox Series, Switch 2, whatever you want to count there. 55%. Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, we do have the best controllers right now. I mean, the PS5, the DualSense, the Xbox Series, even the Switch, you could say with the Pro Controller, or maybe you just use the Joy-Cons in handheld mode. These are the most feature-rich, like technologically advanced controllers we've ever had. I saw a lot of people, though, voting, as you can see, 20% for PS2, Xbox, and GameCube. Some saying that generation, the 6th, had the most personality. And, I mean, if you look at all the controllers, they were all very different. I mean, the PS2 was, I guess, the most standard-looking video game controller. The Xbox, either a big hamburger controller or even the S-Type, was the asymmetric sticks. And the GameCube, well, it was certainly a controller. It's a very different kind of controller. Even now, while people use it, very different, all right? Still, that was just a lot of nostalgia there, yes, but also a lot of personality. Still, it's hard to beat what we have now, which are just 3 very good controllers from these different companies. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Despinato. It says, I'm not one to call for unnecessary remakes, but a Mega Man Legends remake will be a good way to revive interest and lead into a Legends 3. Okay. I hear what you're saying about Legends getting a remake for a more modern audience who, let's face it, there are people, younger generation now looks at those PS1 or N64 visuals and goes, oh, what is wrong with this game? So the thing with me though about Legends, part of the charm is the blocky and wobbly visuals of that PS1, okay? I'd be a little concerned how it would look if you put it in modern visuals with a PlayStation 5. It would almost look a little too weird. I don't know. It really would come down to how exactly Capcom would approach that, because maybe instead of trying to make it look too realistic, even if you went the path of Dragon Quest XI, kind of that Unreal Engine, almost anime-ish kind of art style, I don't know, that would be kind of weird. You might have to go with just like a cel-shaded visuals. That's the big issue here, is if you did remake it, what would the game look like, and would it end up being a mistake overall when you could just remaster the different games, put it out there with the same kind of visuals, just like upscaled and cleaned up a bit there, and then roll along to a Mega Man Legends 3 if there's enough interest. Let me know what your strategy would be, though, if you're going to remake it. What kind of visual style would you go with for Mega Man Legends 1 or even 2? And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card, or maybe you want to check out a video where I talked about some of the pricing for Nintendo and asked the question if you think people are just being priced out at this point. I'll leave that in a video right below it. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.